In this video, we continue looking at the conduit looping method. So in other words, wiring in PVC singles lighting circuits. And we built this rig, and in a previous video, we discussed whether you wanted to build one at home or whether you wanted to build one at college in order to follow this series of videos along. We then went on and we did the first circuit, which was office number 1 having a lighting point and a one-gang one-way switch controlling it. We did the first fix for that in a separate video, then we went on and second fixed it and tested it. And I've also done a video, a little bit of a masterclass on how to connect up PVC singles within the consumer unit. In this video, we're going to do a first fix so we can have office number 2 and office number 3 controlled also by one-way switches. So in other words, we're going to repeat what we've got here into office number 2 and office number 3. In order to help us, we've already produced some wiring diagrams, and this is the wiring diagram here. It was wiring diagram number 3 in the conduit looping method, and I'll leave a link for that video in the description below and in the eye above my head. So we're going to use those and the knowledge that we've acquired in the previous videos in order to navigate where these new conductors are going to need to go in order to wire office number 2 and office number 3. So this is the wiring diagram I've produced, and I've sent you to a link to that video as well. Hopefully you've already produced this and we've gone through some of the learning aspects about wiring and extending this one-way lighting circuit. But let's just plot through what we've currently got. So from the consumer unit, we've got the blue neutral coming out of our neutral bar and went directly to our lighting point. We've got our line conductor coming out the appropriate, in this case 6 amp circuit breaker. And it didn't go to the actual light itself in this method. It goes straight down to the switch and is terminated into the common terminal of the switch. And then from the L1, we come back as our switching line conductor in order to turn on our lighting point. And our CPC left the earth terminal and went to our light and then down to our switch. So we've got that here. So we've got our neutral coming from our consumer unit's neutral bar, and that went directly into the terminal in the back of our straight skirted batten lamp holder for our neutral. And we talked about the lack of polarity with these, so it didn't matter which way around the line and neutral went as long as we got the circuit protective conductor in the correct place. So that was our neutral into position. Our line conductor come out the top of our 6 amp circuit breaker, and we brought it not to our lighting point. It came round the conduit system and went all the way down and was connected into our common terminal of our switch. And then from L1 in this case, our switching line conductor came back and it came all the way up and was connected into our lamp on the other side there. So we've got our connection there, we've got our neutral there, and we've got our CPC that also comes from here, and it goes down our conduit system. And we left it in the back of our box, and we've talked about it all being fully insulated, and I left that there as a little test lead, and we'll continue that on as we do our videos. So we're going to take it now and going to extend it through to the next office. So let's start off with that neutral connection. If we look at our drawing, it just simply says we pick the neutral up from our lighting point and we go across into the next area. So that's straightforward, nice and simple. Our neutral will come from here and it will go through our conduit system and come into the next room to our lighting point when we second fix it. That's nice and straightforward. Our CPCs we'll look at next. Now we can look at our drawing and see the fact that we had 3 CPC connections in the back of the light fitting. But that might be tricky in reality. So if we look here, it might be a case of us having a little play around to see if we can get 3 CPCs into here. Because if we can't get 3 in there comfortably, we're going to have to take that connection from somewhere else. So let's look where we could take that from. Now, because it's such a small rig, I'm sure as a student you might be thinking, actually I'll come back down to the consumer unit and I'll take another one out of here. Well, that's not really that great of a practice to do that. We like our CPC to leave our consumer unit in these radial circuits and go to every point. So our CPC comes up to our lighting point and down to our switch. So as it comes down the conduit to our switch, we could effectively come from this CPC in our small rig, if we can't get our terminals in, and bring it to this lighting point here. However, in the real world, you'd like to keep the conductor runs as short as you possibly can. The only reason we might not come from here with our CPC is because we can't fit it in the size of the terminals, and they are tiny in these fittings, unfortunately. But if we can get it in there, that's the right place to come across in order to get to the lighting point. However, if we can't, we're going to come from the switch where we've got our Wago 221 connector, and we'll pick our CPC up from there. So that's a slight difference that you're going to find between our wiring diagram discussion and our reality of the terminals within the fittings we've got, especially at college where the terminals are really small. We tend to buy inexpensive items for connection purposes. So now it leaves that line connection. So where am I going to pick my line connection up? Now you might think I'll be picking it up from here, but we've got to remember that this is not a permanent line connection, it's a switching line. So if we came off here and went to the next area, to the lighting point in office number 2, they would come on at the same time because they'd share the same switching line. So we don't want to pick it up from here. So hopefully from a wiring diagram video and from knowledge from our previous video, you've got to think, where is our permanent line connection? Well, again, it is a permanent line connection on the top of the breaker. But again, it wouldn't be great practice to come out of here with a permanent line and take that to office number 2. And this permanent line actually comes down all the way down the conduit system and is connected into the common terminal. So this one here is our permanent line connection, which we want to take it from here, and we want to take it from here and bring it through the conduit, missing out the lighting point in office number 2, and bring it down and connect into the common terminal of this switch. And that's what we did in our wiring diagram. We come from the common terminal with our permanent line, we brought it up, through, down, and connected it to the next common. So that's how the conduit looping method works. It loops between the common terminals of our switches, bringing that permanent line into each area, and not from the lighting point. And we're used to seeing connections in the lighting point when we use that domestic 3-plate method that we've discussed many times on the channel, because it's got that extra terminal called loop, and these don't. These straight skirting batten lamp holders have a connection for the neutral, a connection for the circuit protective conductor, and a connection for the switching line connection. So that's how we're going to go about wiring it. The only thing we've got to consider is those CPC connections. So let's start off with the neutral. I am going to pull these conductors in singularly. You wouldn't do that in the real world. You'd bundle all your conductors up and you'd pull them through the conduit system in one, because obviously we don't want any friction. But when my learners are doing this in the first 10 weeks of study, I want them to do it one conductor at a time and think about where they're going. So we're going to start off with the neutral. It's 1.5mm squared, PVC insulated, and it's stranded for greater flexibility, stuff we've mentioned in previous videos. To make it a little bit easier to pass it through the conduit system, I just fold the end over. And I'm going to take my neutral from office number 1 and I'm going to wire it through to office number 2 and continue on to office number 3. So we're going to go through our conduit system with our 1.5mm squared cable. We're going to drop it off at office number 3 first. So we're going to take our neutral from this light to here, and if I just pull it out here, put a little coil there, I've got it in all 3 positions that I need it in. So my neutral has come from light in office number 1. It's going to be connected in here during the second fix. My neutral then goes to office number 2, and from office number 2 it goes off to office number 3. So all of these now have a neutral connection as we build in the first fix of the wiring system. That's it for the neutrals, so we can get rid of those and we can go next for our line conductor. Let's do that one next. So we said that we're going to take our line conductor from our permanent line connection, and that is at the common of the first office, office number 1. Okay, so if I come down here, we've got a permanent line in the common connection here, and I need it to come from here all the way through the conduit system and down into office number 2, and then from office number 2 we need to link to office number 3's common to bring that loop round. So again, I'm just going to fold the end over and I'm going to push that cable through, and we're going to bring it up and out of our lighting point where it won't be connected. So we pull it through there, and we're going to bring it down to here. So I'm going to do one at a time. So I'm going to bring that one down to here. So that's my permanent line connection from the common of my first switch through there, and then down to this office here. So that's now got a permanent line connection. So this one, the second fix, is going to be connected into common. So we get our line into common, and then we go across to office number 2, where this also will go into common, but we're going to wire office number 3 at the same time. So we're going to come from this common into the next office. So we need some more cable for that. I love using offcuts. So when we do really large jobs in the workshop, we always save the cables, and then these cables can be used when we're wiring the smaller jobs that happen at the very start of the year. Again, fold it over. These two are going to be connected together. So I'm going to bring it up through the system. Again, your wiring diagram shows this that we've previously made. I'm going to bring it through down to the switch. And then finally, ignoring this one here, this is a stretching exercise. We may use it in future videos, but it's just there for additional switches for my better learners, the ones that finish first and understand it deeply. they go on and do some extra jobs for me. So there we go. That's our connections for common. So they're all through. So we've come from office number 1, where we're going to connect it into the second fix video, we'll connect it into common, and it comes through into office number 2, and then we take the common through to office number 3, which means we've got a permanent line at all of those positions. So let's think about now doing the switch line coming back. So I need some more brown conductor. Again, it's 1.5 millimeters squared, and I'm going to bring that round. Now I'm going to need to know what this conductor is, because it might be the fact that I'm not second fixing it straight away, and in the real world you probably can't just give them a little tug to find out what they are. So what we're going to do is we're going to put a little nick in this one. So if I just put a little nick in there so we can see I've got a little nick. You might want to put several in it just so you can see it. So there we go, they've got some nicks in. That's going to be my switching line conductor. So that's my switching line conductor. So if I come from my lighting point, I'm going to come this way down this time, fold the end over. I'm going to come downwards into the light switch itself, and it's just a short little run, so we would know which one it is in a college setting, because you could obviously just pull that cable to know it was the switching line. So that's nice and straightforward, but it's good practice to start trying to identify those switching line conductors. And it only needs to identify at the switch, because we know the other two are going to go into common and they've got no nicks in them at all. We're going to repeat the same process here in office number 3. I'm going to put some nicks in the end. So just make some gentle little nicks. Okay, do as many as you want or as few as you want, as long as you're happy with your nick system. And again, I'm just going to push this one down through that switch, which is really not there. It's just, like I said, it's just there as an exercise stretcher. And then it goes up to my lighting point. So I can cut that one off just there. So that's my line and neutral connected along with my switching lines. And now it comes down to that circuit protective conductor, doesn't it? Can we get those into this terminal here? And the only way to work it out is actually to practice, isn't it? So we're going to disconnect these as part of the first fix. So I'm going to just break down my straight skirted batten lamp holder, and I'm going to just see if I can get a CPC connection in there. So the holes on these are microscopically small. The copper's pulled out slightly. I will dress those slightly better when we go again. So I'm back that screw off. You can see what we did in a previous video was twist our conductors up, and we've got to see if we can get another one in there. This is going to be trial and error. Okay, so I can just back that screw back a little bit more, and I'm going to see if I can get another one in there. So let's just take a small piece of cable and see if we can make that connection into there. So if I strip that one back, so we're in there. I want a little bit more. Actually, just strip that back. I'm not that great with the pliers element of this, but I'll give it a go in my 5 and 1. I do like them for all the other aspects. I've not got that good at twisting them up yet. So twist those up. We're not going to double it over because we know we'd never get them in. So let's see if we can get 3 in, just like that. So just dress the 3 in. 1, 2's quite tricky to get in, so I might need to tidy that one up. Let's put this one in. That goes in quite neat. I'm going to have to tidy this one up. So this is a practice thing. This is once you know it on one of them, you'll know it on all of them. So we won't make the same mistake twice. So just tidy that one up. It's nice and straight. Can we get that one into there? And is it going to go in? No. So we can't get those in. So they won't go twisted in. So we've got a choice now. We can do them untwisted. So we can give that a go. So I'm going to take the 3 of these out. I'm just going to strip them. And just see if I can get them in untwisted. So I'm going to shorten these back. Just drop them into the right slot. Cut. There is a little slot there we talked about in other videos for stripping them. So now I've got my 3 conductors ready just to see if they can go in, really. Not worried about second fixing. This is just a trial stage. So let's put these in. See if they will go into here. So we've got 2. Got to get all the strands in, so I don't like not twisting them up. It's a little bit fiddly. If Gaz can't do it, then I can't expect my students to do it. So those are in, like that. There's 1. Let's try the second one. 2. So none of the strands are out there. A little bit too long, but that's not a problem at the minute. I'm just seeing if I can get 3 in. And we go in again. Can I get the third one in? I can. So I just about get 3 in when I do not twist them up. So we've got a choice now. Are we prepared to go with the conductors not twisted in that terminal? Because we can just about get them in, so they do go in. Or are we going to stick with 2 in here and go to our CPC at our actual switch? So for me, I'm going to like our conductors twisted up. So I'm going to take my CPC connection actually from my switch. So I'm going to go back to where we were before, but we have proved we can get them into there. So if this was a really, really long conduit run, you wouldn't run it 15, 20 meters down here to get to the switch when you could get it into the connection actually at the lighting point. But because it's going to be really fiddly for my learners, or fiddly, if I say it right, fiddly for the learners in that first 10 weeks, I'm probably going to say, let's not do it up here. Let's take our CPC from our switch. So we're not going to take our CPC from here across to here. We're actually going to bring it from the first switch, which is a little bit longer as we just discussed. So I'm going to come from the switch. I'm going to poke it down my conduit. I'm going to pick it up at my Wago 221 connector in order to make that connection. So it comes out here. So it will be connected into there and it will go to here first. So we're going to drop that CPC off at the lighting point just because we know it's going to be really difficult for us to start getting 3 in there. And when we're training, we're trying to make our lives that little bit easier. But like I said, if it was a really, really long run to do this, you would have done the connection without twisting them up. You wouldn't have added hundreds of meters of cable in or 20, 30 meters of extra cable in when you didn't need to. So our CPC gets to here. We're going to need to take a CPC from here at the lighting point down to our switch. So we're going to do that. So fold the end over. Let's poke that one down. So we get a CPC at our switch. We now know from practice that we're not going to come from here because we've already got 2 connections for a CPC. We've also got 2 for our neutral, but we know they'll go in our straight skirted batten lamp holder. So we're going to bring our CPC now from our switch. It's going to come from the switch directly to lighting point number 3 because it'll be easier for us to connect, and then from lighting point 3 down to the switch. So let's bring that one in next. So you can see why I want my students to do it 1 conductor at a time for that thinking process. But in the real world, we know we'd have to pull all the cables in one because it's quicker, and obviously we don't want the friction burn. We don't want these to rub past each other on long runs and start wearing through that conductor insulation. So through we go. So we bring our CPC up to here, and then we've just got 1 final connection. We've got to come down from there to there. Well, that's a bit disappointing and it's a little bit too short. So let's get another CPC. So the cable, yeah, that'll be long enough. Cut off the end, fold it over, and then we've got, hopefully just to check to see if we've wired our circuit correctly. That one comes there, fold the end over, there we go. So that's it, that's just wired. So now when we take a look at this, hopefully from a higher up point, so thank you to the camera person, what we've got now is it wired, and I always say to my students to check it against the drawing. So you have to go and look at the drawing, but we've made some alterations on the CPCs. But when I come along as an instructor, I'm looking at what we've got here. So have we got 2 blues? So in other words, 2 neutrals, I'm happy. Have we got 1 brown? Yes. And we've got a couple of CPCs. Even if they're wrong, I know they're the right number of conductors there. Likewise here. And again, at the switches, at the last switch, I should have a switching line, okay, and we've identified that with NICs, and our common and a CPC. And at switching point number 2, we should have 2 browns, which will go into common, and 1 which is a switching line and a couple of CPCs. And at the switch we'd already wired in the first stage, we've got our brown to go into our common connection and our CPC because we've said that we can't get 3 really comfortably into our lighting point. So when I've looked at that, the students now, obviously they've wired it, they've checked their own wiring diagram, okay, and that is done. Office number 2 and office number 3 will be replicated a light. So there'll be a light here and a light here, separately controlled by this switch and this switch in separate offices. And that's where we are building it up on that first fix stage. In the next video, we'll go on and look at the second fixing of these conductors. But hopefully you can see as we build through this series, we're building up on our knowledge. Maybe you've got a rig similar to this at home and you're following along with me, or you've got something similar at college and you're applying the same knowledge. So the wiring diagrams, the first fix, the consumer unit wiring, terminating the ends, all building up so you can then take this knowledge at college and pass pass it into the electrical industry as part of your apprenticeship. But as always, I hope this video has been some help.